Hello, Cosmic Witches, and welcome back to another episode of the Divine Gossip Girls podcast. I'm super excited you're here because today we're going to be diving into the energy of draining and shifting your narrative, shifting the way you move with this energy of draining because we can either allow things to drain us or we can drain things from us. So that's what the girls and I are going to have a little chit chat about today of what is draining their energy and how we can take our power back and drain what no longer serves us, redirecting this energy of draining into a more of a cleansing relationship, instead of allowing things to drain us, take our life, take our energy from us, taking that power back and draining what no longer serves us. So if this feels aligned to you, if you've been feeling drained recently, if things are just feeling a lot, you're feeling very fatigued, you're feeling very drained, then this episode is going to be perfect for you because we're going to bring some shifts and some vulnerable shares into this conversation so that you can take it away and take your power back and really expand your capacity to feel more alive and feel more energized in your life.
Hey Cosmic Witches! Divine Gossip Girls here, your one and only source into the spiritual happenings of the cosmos.
Ever wonder what this month's energy will have in store for you? What the planets and stars are even up to? Or if the universe can just help you catch a break already?
Well, lucky you, because we have all the spiritual secrets to tell. Get ready to sip on your weekly dose of divine tea.
Okay, let's just dive right in. So this is a conversation I really wanted to bring to the spiritual tea table because this is something that I have been moving with and moving through because for anyone who doesn't know, I have took on a part-time job in hospitality. I'm a supervisor at a very, very fast-paced, busy cafe during the weekends and one day during the week as well. I also run my own business. I have two podcasts. Run my own membership. I hold workshops. I have a family. I have friends. I have just a soul, a being to pour into, a life to live as well. And I had been feeling very drained, right? I feel like my capacity was getting stretched, not in a good way. And I was just feeling really overwhelmed with it all. And a shift that I made, I done a little practice, an embodiment practice on myself. And a shift that I personally made was like, okay, like how can I shift this narrative of draining instead of allowing work to drain me, instead of allowing people's behaviors to drain me and how to stop allowing fears to drain me. How can I drain things from me? How can I drain these fears from me? How can I drain control from me? How can I drain worry from me? How can I drain procrastination from me? How can I drain overwhelm from me and allow this to be more of a cleansing experience so that it can create more space in my being, in my body, in my mind, in my heart, in my energy, so that I have more energy to pour into myself. I have more energy to pour into my work. But let me know. I'd love to hear like if that's a shift that lands with any of you girls.
Do you find that, like, I don't know, some of it I think is running my own business, and then some of it's also just like ADHD. But I think that I get so drained by like the expectation of what I think I can get done in a day. And then like things go wrong and or I can't get everything done, or just like I can't focus enough to get everything done with my ADHD. I think for me some of it is like with my ADHD, I mean, Sophie, you've seen this firsthand. I can like hyper focus and I can get stupid amounts of things done in the span of like 2 hours. And I think that that hyper focus where I can get what some people can get done in like 8 hours, done in 2 hours, I'm like, that should be me always. Like I should be at the top of my game always. And then I have these like grand expectations, not even just of my life, but like day to day of what I can do. And then it feels very draining when I look and I'm like, I only got 50% of what I expected to get done today. And I've been trying to really change my perspective. Like I've been doing timesheets, I've been doing like checking things off and at the end of the day looking at everything that I actually got done versus like the things that I didn't get done and like being okay if things go wrong because like I was trying to edit a video. Oh my gosh, I was trying to edit a video the other day and I put it into my editing software and it completely washed it out. Like everything turned a bland light yellow. And so that took hours to figure out how to fix. And then I couldn't get the sound on the computer working. And then it was like not running properly. So something that should have taken me like 1 to 2 hours took me like 8 hours. And I could be looking at that, be like, that is so draining. Like, oh, I wanted to get so much more done and like feeling really down on myself and drain my energy more. And I mean, I did do that, honestly. But now I'm trying to look at it and be like, you know what? At least I figured it out. And now moving forwards, like that's fixed. And if that's what had to happen that day and that's all I got done, like that's all I got done.
Well,
But at least I got it done.
The kind of shift that I had made and what I was speaking on there is like, how can you, like, instead of allowing this to drain you and kind of frustrate you and overwhelm you, how can you drain this frustration, this overwhelm from you? How can you cleanse that from you? Allowing this to, instead of allowing it to drain you and drain your energy, be like, okay, like, how can I actually drain this energy? Like, as if, like, it's a Hoover, like, or a vacuum or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, it's like, and I think for me, it's that shift of perspective. Like for me, I could have seen it as like, oh, what a waste of time, but I could also see it as like empowering. Like I actually figured that out. Like I don't think I'm the most tech savvy person necessarily, but I literally figured out how to recolor my image, like the video properly. I figured out all the tech stuff, and maybe it took me a little bit longer than someone who's really versed in it, but I did it. And I did it on my own. And like, that's really empowering to me to be like, okay, if you have other problems in the future, you'll figure them out. Like I used YouTube and stuff like that, but I figured it out and I made it work. And so rather than, yeah, like letting it drain me, I'm like draining out that frustration by being like, no, let's turn it into some sort of empowerment.
Sophie, I feel, or not Sophie, well, Sophie and Maggie. I feel like what I'm getting from like both of you guys and what I know to be true for me too is like our minds just like to tell us, you know, that we put like we literally put so many expectations on ourselves. And I feel like one thing that drains me out so much is not like doing things, it's just being in my mind. Like my mind during my yoga course, the head man like always talked about how the majority of your energy is actually like comes out of your mind. Like your thoughts take up like 70% of your energy. That's why like prioritizing things like meditation or something that helps to quiet the mind is so necessary. And for my ADHD besties over here, I can tell even more that that's probably even more of a struggle.
And Carly,
Yeah.
this is so much for me and you, especially too, because we're both Geminis who have our suns in the 12th house. And so that basically means like your 12th house is like spirituality and energy, and Gemini is the sign of the mind. So literally, when you look at like both of our charts, it's like our core energy and like our core beliefs of who we are live in the mind with Gemini, and then in the energy of energy. So like all of our energy really is looking at our birth charts stored in our minds. So it's double for us as well.
That makes
and
so
then
much sense.
triple for me with my ADHD.
Yeah. Well, and that's why like on so many of our calls or like our meetings, it's like Maggie and I will just like blah, 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 and then Sophie's like, all right. Or sometimes that is me, honestly. I can be the grounder too. But I do definitely feel like with the mind, like that's what I've just been picking up on is like, wow, my mind drains me. Even when I'm doing something like nannying. So I too am on the triple hustle grind. I nanny. I am a dog watcher now, apparently. I don't know if I've told you guys about that, but I've been on the dog watcher grind, which also great way to make passive income while you're building a business because you don't, I mean, like you can work from their place. It's great. But anyways, I've got like a lot going on, but while I'm there, it's not even like I'm presently there. Like when I'm playing dolls with the girls, have so much fun. But I'm like, sometimes I'm literally somewhere else. Like my mind is like, do, 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 but I'm like talking and I'm like, I'm multitasking by doing a task and then thinking at the same time. And you know how draining that is. So what I kind of started to do over the past couple of weeks, because I've really started to become aware of this, is I like talk to myself, I empower myself, and I'm like, you know what, mind, I am not going to allow you to drain my energy. So I've been doing this technique, which I did in the past, but it's like I call it the stop technique. And I literally will become aware that my mind is like, blah, 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 and I'll say stop. And sometimes like I will start like I'll like physically like snap my fingers. I'm like, stop. I'll say out loud,
I
I say
do this.
stop. Yeah.
I do
I'm
this.
like,
I get
stop.
in the ADHD, I get this like the ADHD sort of like freeze loop where like I have to say my old roommate, the good roommate, would laugh at me all the time because he'd see me like standing in the living room and I would like kind of be going back and forth and I'd be like, I need to fill up my water bottle in the kitchen, but I also need to like plug my phone in my bedroom. And then I also need to like put this notebook down on my desk and I have everything in my hand and it's kind of like, oh, let me go fill up my water. Oh, wait, but I really should plug in my phone so it's just charging while I'm doing all of this. Oh, but then I'd have to do the book at the same time, so I should really fill up my water first. And I start like literally like taking one step in one direction and then panicking and taking a step in the other
Like a
direction.
little
And I'm just,
dance.
yeah, and I'm literally just going back and forth. And then I would stop myself and I would out loud be like, pick one. And then I would go and I'd fill up my water or whatever it was. But I needed to like get out of my mind and just like
Yeah.
in the present. I do this all the time and I have to be like, choose. And then I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, I'll choose. And it's like this almost like your voice is this grounding thing that takes
It
away from that
is.
energy drain.
It's like an
And
authority.
yeah,
Hmm.
and to what you're saying, like I feel like my I would so much rather just personally be physically drained, like have a really long day where I'm like going and doing all these things and I'm physically drained rather than a day where I'm mentally drained. Because for me, like physically drained, I don't know, I feel productive, I feel tired, but sometimes when you're mentally drained, you go to bed, but your mind's still worrying. And it's like I'm so mentally done, but my mind now can't shut off because my body's not tired. And like, I don't know, for me, I would so much rather be like, how can I take this energy that's swirling in my mind, ground it back into my body, do some tasks, do something, and then actually be physically tired. But it's about, I think, like rewiring that.
I love that. I love that you brought up these two like different elements of like drainedness, being physically drained and being mentally drained. Because, like, yeah, like where I was coming at was obviously from this physical drain because I'm doing so much, I'm working so much, I've got so much going on. And yes, that's good, but like it does take like it takes so much of your energy, right? And when you can feel productive, you can feel accomplished, but how do you, for me, it's like, how do I like come back to my energy, come back to my aliveness? And what shifted for me was like draining the energy of others that may have projected onto me, the chaos of what I just like endured, like draining that energy from me so that I can come back to my aliveness because it can take so much of my energy, like working so much or just holding so much as well, right? And you can get to give yourself permission to drain any of that energy that's like draining you, right? But then there's also this other side of the coin where it's like, yeah, you can feel you may not feel physically drained, but you may feel mentally drained. And it kind of still works hand in hand that you still get to drain the things in your mind that aren't serving you anymore. So what in your mind hasn't been serving you, what's been loud, what's been heavy that wants to be drained, right? Because
Mm.
for me, recently, a lot of the things that I've been kind of draining from me is this control, this grip that I'm holding on to, right? That's been physically draining me and mentally draining me, right? Or draining this worry of what my future looks like, which is physically draining me and mentally draining me at times, right? And looking at, so I would actually love to hear you guys of like what is maybe physically or mentally draining you right now, and like how can you start draining that from you as if like you've got this little filter like somewhere, I don't know, up your nose, wherever you want to put it.
Well, I feel like it also is so interconnected. Like the mind and the body, it's like you're going to be drained in both aspects. Like whether it's like physical or mental, like they take energy from the, it's like when you're mentally drained, you're also going to be physically drained because you have energy like draining from your body to be so in the mind. And when you're physically drained, you're also going to be mentally drained because there's so much energy in the physical body draining the mind. So I feel like when it comes to like specifically being mentally drained, like, wow, my mind has just been storing so much, has been on a rat race. I love to do a mind dump where like I literally on a piece of paper, I just write down all of the things that are on my mind. It doesn't have to be coherent sentences, like it can be lists, whatever it is. And then I will like mark off the things that are out of my control and I like surrender them out into the universe. I'm like, these are not mine to worry about. I do not, it's not mine to to have and hold and carry. So I'll surrender it out through like putting it in a box and setting it out to the universe, working with my guides, doing some tapping, some shaking my body. And then I'll circle the ones that are in my control. And I'm like, okay, how can I switch my perspective around these things so I feel more empowered and I'm not allowing them to drain my energy, but rather like fill my energy and feed my energy and help me feel good. So that's a really good kind of task you can do, like a mind kind of
And I
dump.
feel like you doing that dump that you have done, you've created that
Mm-hmm.
space within you for these other things to fill you up. Because if you're
Right.
like over, like, what's the right word? It's just like you're feeling too, you're
Like
like, there's just too
overwhelmed.
much going on. You don't have enough capacity or space to actually allow these other things to bring you life, bring you joy, bring you like that overflow of energy, then it's going to be hard to like to expand into that. So it's like with that brain dump or with different practices that you can drain and release and let go of things, that creates that space within you to then pour into like you in a kind of more healthier and empowering way.
Mm-hmm. I know this is kind of like jumping around, which Maggie, I do want to hear your thing as well. But do you guys notice like the days that you're drained are the days where you're not as embodied, like when you're not in your body? Like, do you
Oh
ever
yeah,
notice that? Like, those
100%.
are the days where you're just like, I didn't stop for like any self-care. I didn't stop for any time with myself to just be like present. I feel like those are the days that I feel the most drained. I come out like being like, oh my God, I need to sleep for 20 hours.
I
Yeah,
think
because you
this
haven't poured into yourself. Like I just keep visualizing seeing us as like cups, like that the cups like you have to pour into your own cup before you pour into others, but really seeing yourself as like a cup, right? And right now it's full of things that aren't serving you or whatever it is, or maybe it's empty because you haven't poured into yourself and you're feeling drained. And for me, when I've not drank a lot of water or I've not ate, I'm feeling really tired and I'm feeling fatigued. And it's like, okay, you have to pour into yourself in loving ways, like release things that aren't going to bring you energy and pour into yourself in a way that's going to activate your energy and bring you energy so that you do feel alive.
this is exactly what I was actually going to say for mine, so this is perfectly like fits perfectly is that like this is what I mean, like I totally agree that like when you're mentally drained you feel it in your body, and then when you're physically drained you can feel it in your mind, but usually like when you're mentally drained you're not actually physically drained, it just feels like that because your mind is trying to pull from your body so much to have like some sort of energy. And like there is a difference of like the physical tired that you feel from being mentally drained versus the physically tired you feel from being physically drained. Like when I'm physically drained, my body is like tired and it's like I have to move down, my like muscles hurt or whatever. When I'm mentally drained, physically I feel just like sleepy and lethargic and like ugh. And the same thing when I'm physically drained, my mind just feels like it just is like begging me for a rest because it's more like begging on behalf of my body versus when I'm like
Or
actually
it's like
mentally.
anxious too. Like,
Yeah,
do you ever feel
because
anxious? Like
it's
you have
running,
so much
right?
energy.
You have
Yeah.
so much energy, but you have no outlet for it. And then like when you're mentally tired, it's literally just like kaput, like I'm done. I just can't think of anything else anymore. And so I find like a lot of the times what we do is when we feel drained, at least what I do when we feel drained in one place is that we rush to like screens or something to just sort of numb it out, and we're just like, oh, we're just relaxing, we're scrolling, we're watching YouTube or watching Netflix. But what I have found recently of like what's actually helpful is I don't think there's anything wrong with like watching Netflix or YouTube or scrolling, but I like to try and like, I say I like to try and do it, but like, I'm not perfect, so I don't do it a lot of the time. But doing these things when you're both mentally and physically drained are great because they're just things that are purely passive, purely something that you can do when you have nothing else to give. But when you're physically drained, like something that I've been trying to do more recently is doing like little puzzles. So when I'm physically drained, I can like lay on the couch, but maybe I'm doing like a little Sudoku, or I got this like puzzle book that I'll do, or I'll read a book because it's like I'm physically drained, but I can still do things with my mind. And rather than letting my mind go like crazy and swirling, it's like let me give my mind something active to do and like actually tire it out, which like these other things where I'm just like passively watching this video, they're not going to do that unless it's like a documentary or something that I'm like learning from that can help. And then, coin reversed, when I am mentally drained but not physically drained, what I like to do, even if I don't necessarily have the capacity to like go and like do like a workout, do something really crazy, like maybe I'll just like go for a walk, or maybe I'll like go sit outside and enjoy that, do a meditation or something where it's like I'm sitting up in my body, maybe do some yoga where it's a bit more flowy. Like what is a way that I can sort of move my body or do something, or maybe it just my body needs a little jump start, maybe I need a dance, maybe I need to put on music, maybe I can take 15 minutes and like clean. Like what's something that can like allow my body to start like matching my mind. And then once I'm actually like fully tired, like I don't think there's any problem with draining yourself, like bringing your energy out, because then by the end of the day you're refueling. I think the biggest problem we have is when one aspect of us is drained and the other one isn't. You know what I mean? Like when our bodies are super tired and our minds are like woohoo, woohoo, and instead we're just like we need rest, but then our minds are like ah.
Yeah, so so true. I love those little bits right there, and I definitely would just highlight the social media aspect of it and how that's such like a thing that we do when there's something either uncomfortable in the body or we want to do something mindless, is like we just want to scroll, but oftentimes that actually just drains us more. Even though we don't like in the moment we're like, yes, I'm resting, and yes, there's a time and place for social media, but when you're feeling drained, I feel like if you can as much as possible avoid social media, I've really noticed that that helps. Like whenever I go on social media, it seems to just make my mind think so much more, or just, and I feel it in my body too. Like I feel like icky after a while of scrolling. So just to reiterate, kind of like Maggie said, yoga for me is a beautiful way, but also like something that pairs both like the physical and mental is breath work. I think that is a really powerful thing to do, to practice. If you guys haven't heard of alternate nostril breathing, I would highly recommend trying that out when the body and the mind, like either time, or when you're both feeling mentally and physically drained, emotionally drained as well. Alternate nostril breathing is really great at balancing your nervous system and connecting both the right and left hemispheres of the brain. So I would recommend that for anyone that wants to try it out. You can search like a video on YouTube, but alternate nostril breathing is just one of my faves. I do it before bed, I do it when I wake up, I do it before yoga. It's or before meditation. Incredible.
I love that. And I want something that I done this morning, and I'm going to ask you guys to share with us, like one thing that you're draining from you through breath work, through meditation, like what you're draining, what you're letting go of. But for me, even this morning, what was coming up for me was this control aspect that I was talking about, and what I was visualizing and like using my breath and using movement to release my grip. So I was like, it felt like I was like Spider-Man or something, because I was like putting my like hands out, and I don't know, like I was just like visualizing this like steam coming out of my hands, and like this control just evaporating from me, being drained from me, and like creating that space within me to feel more surrendered, feel more open to receive, right? So I would love to know, Maggie and Carly, what is one thing that you are draining from you, that you're no longer allowing to drain you, but instead you are draining from you? And how are you going to do that?
Mm, I think I'm draining, or actually, I am draining from me. Um, just this disempowering energy, and this limiting energy that's kind of been living within me over the past few months. That's been building. I am draining it out, and I am taking my power back. I am choosing to empower myself and believe once again in this ambitious vision that I have, and to believe that it is possible. So I'm doing that through tapping. I've been tapping and speaking affirmations to myself in the morning, and just really ensuring that as much as possible, when I'm noticing my mind, getting in the way, I do that stop technique. I take a few breaths, I ground into the present moment, and I redirect my mind to something that would feel good for me.
I think I'm draining like numbing, like I was saying earlier, like numbing activities, like things that are just there to be like passive, things that are just there to be like not actually helping me in any ways. Like, not even like everything has to be productive and positive, but just like things that are literally just doing nothing for me and just have me like sitting there just being, but not in a way that's like feeling good. Like, I think there's a lot of things that I'm doing that don't feel good to me, but I'm just doing because they're a space filler and I was just trying to fill space before. And so
Mhm.
I think they end up being really draining. Like, I think I end up doing these things and then I feel foggy or I feel numb for most of the day. And then when I actually have stuff I need to get done, they're not helpful. Like, even watching videos on my phone versus like reading a book, like they both really like give the same passive energy, except like reading a book for me is like so much more fulfilling for my energy. Like, it feels so much better and it leaves me feeling better. Like, I can go on the rest of my day and it doesn't like fog my brain right out the same way as like staring at a screen would. So I think it's just like draining these things that are numbing rather than making me feel more like myself.
I love those. Well, if anybody listening wants to share with us what you're draining, what's been draining you, and what are you draining so that you can step into empowerment, step into, if it's like Maggie, things that are actually going to fulfill you, things that are actually going to bring you joy, things that are actually going to relax you, instead of scrolling, shifting that into reading a book at night. So I'd love to know, what are you draining from you? What are you cleansing from you? Sophie's got the Hoover and she's sucking it from you. Give it to her. What are you giving it to? What are you giving her? And what is that creating space within you to step into? What is that creating space within you to create and lean into?
And if you want advice on this, we'll have the link below. Put in like how you've been feeling, put in some things maybe that you want to step into more or anything like that. And our Divine Gossip Girls hotline is open. We're taking your questions or even just your stories and we're talking about them. We're giving your advice. We're telling you ways that this maybe has come up in our own lives. It's just a way for like you to get in on the conversation, for you to literally join the podcast. It's completely anonymous. You can include your name if you want in your message, but you don't have to. So put in your questions and we're going to be talking with all of you.
Yes. Well, thank you everyone for listening. We're excited to hear your questions and what you're draining and your feedback from the podcast, and for you to be a part of it and co-create episodes with us. But thank you for listening. I hope you learned something. I hope you are excited to shift your relationship with the energy of draining. And we will see you all next week for another episode.
Bye.
Bye.